debris on it. I mean, it's beautiful.
Oh no, I think you sit up there.
Right next to Dave.
March 7th, 2023. And we'll start as soon as a few people come back. Just on to our next agenda item. We're going to be a discussion on the downtown public spaces. Mr. Hepner.
Good evening. First, just want to show you a brief map and kind of show what we're going to look at tonight, and then we'll get into kind of a short discussion. I'll show a few concepts. Later on in the agenda during the council, number 1 is the Oz Plaza next door here to City Hall. Number 2 is the back of City Hall restroom area potentials. 3 is near the Fowler Lake boat launch, and then 4 is Village Green. We're going to focus mostly on 2 and 3 in this next discussion. I'm going to pull up a few concepts. So a lot of this really has to do with, talk about the warming shelter or warming house. So let me go to those first. So there's been a concepts by 2 different groups, and I know Lewis shared some, and I know the high school students we worked with have shared a concept of what could happen here. So I'm just going to show you some images, spark some conversation, talk about it, see if there's direction to move forward to look at some of these a little more in depth. So it might be hard to see on your screen, but these are some concepts of a potential warming shelter, I would say in the winter, but then in the summer, could it be leased out, rented out, used to do kayaks or paddle boards or those kind of things on Fowler Lake. So there's a couple different views. It's mostly, this shows a glass building, roof. This does not have restrooms. It'd be pretty minimal on utilities. Got one more page here. I want to show you a few of the shots. So an attractive building. It could be right up to the lake, which this one shows best. The boat launch is here. The playground's kind of behind it. St. Paul's School and parking lot over here. So
We own that playground right there.
correct.
Yep.
We own up about to this sidewalk here. There's a little room, it's not huge, but some room right here on the shoreline. And the next concept I'll show you goes back just a little ways further to the parking lot.
Greg, would you mind
Yep.
if I insert a couple
Yeah,
comments?
let me just show you the other one and then let's dive into it. Now this would probably not fit in this space. This is the high school students put together some thoughts, but I think it sparks some ideas. There's a public restroom, talks about showing some kayaks could be rented. Maybe you don't have a 3-decker place, but maybe it's a 2-decker or that kind of thing. I'm sure if you built all of this, there would be people that would be concerned about the view of the lake. So I don't think we're suggesting that, but it just gives people a different thing to look at. We're always looking for public spaces where there's permanent seating, much like the boardwalk. Again, this could land here, that could land closer to the water. So just some images to spark some conversation. And yeah, Lou, if you mind jump in, because you know these best.
So the concept of this building would provide both the north and south side of it, so the side along the lake and the side along the parking lot with the glass overhead doors. So if you can picture that in the spring, summer, and fall, that it's completely open, which would be attractive for even greater accessibility visually to the lake. and to experience that asset of the community. You can kind of see in the center, there's kind of a shadowed area that's a retail counter. You know, I don't think anybody's excited about having another thing that the city would have to operate and pay for. So the thought is that that would be a leasable space, both in the spring, summer, fall, and winter for skate rental and the watercraft, non-motorized. And the roof there shows solar panels. Because of the proximity to public infrastructure associated with bathrooms and things of that nature, it gets really costly. So that's why the bathrooms aren't there, but you could do just regular water. You could maybe that water, provide some electricity there, but relatively light utility usage in that space. The inspiration for that particular design is actually the train stop over by the depot there. You can kind of see that in the architectural element. So it kind of embraces the history of the community that way. And I just, as a courtesy, I did stop at St. Paul's and told them that we were looking at some things on that area, and that at least this option didn't impose into the playground area. They seem to be very appreciative of that. The other image of this on the east side, no, I'm sorry, on the west side toward the boat launch, shows a little fire pit, kind of. It would be more gas operated than log operated, and a great part of that warming house, indoor, outdoor kind of feel. So a cool place to gather any season.
So that's kind of gives you a little bit of a look at what a warming shelter house and a four-season lease opportunity could be. It could be smaller, it could be, you know, Lou and I talked, we'd want to ramp this down so it's easy to access to the water and or when it's ice for skating. But just give you some thoughts. So happy to open it up to others. Actually, let me show you this and then we can open up for discussion. So don't get caught up in all of this yet, but this is something that goes back, I think it was presented to the Tourism Commission a couple of years back. So again, we were talking about restrooms on the backside of City Hall. Some of this was maybe to set up some permanent seating, but with the Oz Plaza potentially coming online, that might shift that back there. But just gives you, it was a combination of not only public restrooms, but kind of a welcome center. So tourism, when you come, can you ask some questions? Where do I go? All those good things. It's a concept where this could be a kind of a welcome center for the city. So that's really what I'm going to show you for images, but open up for conversation after some kind of direction for staff. And I'm happy to show up, put up the other map that kind of shows you reality too.
What's the funding for this right now? What are we talking about funding-wise? Is there any funding for any of this?
The only funding that you, I think, have set aside for the warming shelter was the $50,000 to do exploration design.
From the Rockwell TIF?
Correct. That's what I'm
Lou, do you anticipate there being private fundraising associated with this?
Do. And the option where Craig shows the bathrooms behind City Hall, there is a carryover associated with the bathrooms that could be applied there. The vision of that warming house public utilization shelter has always been a public-private partnership to the best of my knowledge. There is always going to be a private fundraising effort to that. But getting the vision dialed in with the engineering and everything that the city would steer is why the $50,000 was in that TIF.
So I'd like to open up for comments or questions from council members. Alderman Mulder.
Yeah, just first blush, that is kind of one more area of the city where our lakefront is underutilized, right? I do see that. I question how much use we'll get out of a warming house, given the way our winters are. I don't know how many days we had skating available this year, a couple weeks worth maybe? How many? 3 days worth. 3 days worth. Some years it's a couple months, some days it's...
Last year, we had about 6 weeks. So it's somewhere between that number, yes.
Well, how much does that has to do with the equipment that we're using to tend the ice? I mean,
No,
because it's gotta be a certain poundage that we're dealing with to get the equipment out there. I mean, can't we get something lighter? That we don't have to have like 10 feet of ice to tend, you know,
Correct.
clean
We
it?
actually need a solid 7 or 8, not feet, and we actually use smaller equipment. So that's the best we can do. So you really need at least 6 to 8 inches of good ice. So it's Wisconsin, it's up, and like I said, it could be 3 days like this year or 6 weeks like last year.
But the purpose of the, oh, sorry.
But that's what your
Can I just
maximum
continue my
season.
thought?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Absolutely.
And I think the kayak with the portage that we're putting through, now we are competing with, I mean, the city already does offer kayak services, as a couple other companies in the city already do. You know, but would there be enough storage in that? Is what, I mean, a kayak takes up a lot of room if you have to have 10 or 15. I mean, to make it economically viable for someone to stand there and rent them out, you have to have couple dozen of them probably any one time to rent out to make the money. How big is that? Is it like 20 by 40? Or would there be on-site storage not within what's the?
We could put him in the mayor's office. He's got a lot of extra space in there.
Yeah.
The thought would be.
And a fridge.
There would be some on-site storage there, and then bring it out during the day. So you
You
could
could wheel
bring
it
it,
in and
yeah,
out of it.
bring it in and out. And again, you know, it's not that the city would offer those rental services, it would be that a private entity does that. So the city is not then gonna take the cost and time to open and close, clean and upkeep. We'd have a lease with an operator. And even if it's not conducive to skating, the number of ice fishing events that go on Fowler are pretty decent. So I could see the ice fishing fisheries and stuff being enhanced with something like this.
I'd be surprised if you could find an ice skating company willing to rent skates, given that volatility of this
Maybe some
kayaks.
tip-ups.
Kayaks a
and-
little more.
Yeah.
Other comments or questions?
Pretty much hit on what I was going to say.
Okay.
You forgot.
Talk long enough?
Anything that you'd like from the council, Mr. Hefner?
Well, is there any certain direction you'd want staff to explore further or get further design, I guess? Do you want us?
The warming, I mean, I think we have routinely said we're interested, at least since I've been on. There's been interest even with former council members on some type of warming hut there to do. There's like a tradition of the skating there and the warming kind of hut that would be cool to go back to. It may be a tad bit big, but you know, something with that look, I think, is what people are looking for, access to the lake. In summer, they can sit there, do a fire pit, fish, you know, in winter, skate. I think it's kind of a cool concept, and something we should explore at least a little bit more. That is a really unused space right there. It's actually kind of ugly. When we go there with the kids and play, you go down, it's like all, the mulch is all falling into the lake and it's just kind of scrub. I mean, if we could do something to really attract people there, I think that'd be cool and good for the downtown businesses too, I would think.
So
Lou?
would it be fair to ask if the council would support continuing the development of that concept plan, pending other funding sources, at least start maybe private engagement to see what kind of funding those efforts could bring forth, knowing that the council supports the placement and the concept?
I think that's a fair request, and I think it's a good direction. The question I would have is, I'm still not hearing exactly what we need it for and when we need it, because we can use it for a lot of things over 12 months, or do we want something temporary and functional just as a warming hut? I'm not hearing that from the council. So I think maybe if we could get a little bit more direction from council, that might help.
No,
Jennifer?
I think it's something that needs to be used 12 months out of the year. I mean, you could pull out the kayaks as of like, what, last week, with the way the lakes are thawing, so. Or a paddle, you know, or what do they call the upright, stand-up paddle boards?
Why don't we push this to Park and Rec? I mean,
Well, we
had-
started
went
there,
through-
and then it got approved to come here.
Well, it wasn't approved, it was
Well,
discussed.
approved, it was,
as-
yeah.
Do you know anybody on Park and Rec?
Yeah, I don't.
I do. I don't remember if he was there at the last meeting when we talked
He was
about this,
not.
though.
So what I'm hearing is to explore kind of the Area 3, closer to the shoreline. A little more permanent building, trying to figure out size-wise. We have to measure and make sure that all fits, so we can't infringe on the water as well.
It's currently sized to fit between the boat launch without having to interrupt the ability for the kids to play on the playground. So if that kind of gives you an idea of the sizing.
Is that like 15 by 30, like?
It's roughly 40 lengthwise. Yep, 20, 24. And again, the rendering is a conceptual rendering, but if there's support from the council to take a look at that type of all-season structure, then we can start the efforts to fundraise, and depending upon what other funding sources are available, move down that road to completion.
I think what I'm hearing is the council says, yeah, let's continue to pursue it. I don't know I'd go down the fundraising arm yet, talking to people that might be significant donors, yeah, that's cool. But how can you fundraise when we don't know what we're fundraising for? You know, I don't know, is this gonna have a bathroom, yes or no? You know, those are all the decisions council will have to make. Once it's kind of fine-tuned, I think it's a great start.
How do we fund the engineering on this? Right now, the funding for that would come from the TIF.
Right. Which is
That-
why
Is going to be possibly, yeah, right.
I mean, I would love to see the bathrooms attached to this. I don't know where we haven't gone back to the concept of bathrooms within the police department off of Oz Plaza. We've talked about that several times. I don't know if that's been further explored and not presented, not explored, but we need bathrooms on that end of the city. It makes sense to have them here if you're in skates to be able to go to the bathroom, otherwise you gotta take your skates off, go across the road. Same with, it just feels like that's a natural place if you're gonna get people to congregate there for activities and then make them walk across the parking lot for bathrooms, doesn't
We
make a lot of
talked
sense.
about this in Park and Rec. And I mean, it kind of came down to cost. To put bathrooms there would have been, I mean, it really takes the price through the roof, correct?
I think it's worth, actually, it was interesting, the board was pretty well split, like,
Yeah.
half loved this, half loved two, they didn't hate either, so it was not great direction, but I think it's worth at least finding the option of this. The main worry is this parking lot was redone in 2017, so if you're gonna go and rip this up to get utilities back here, it's a long run, it's over 300 feet, all that good stuff, so it'd have to be explored.
But we'd still have the portage on, right next to the boat launch, because wasn't there something that we have to keep that there?
no,
I mean-
not if you have bathroom at number 2.
Well, we don't actually have, or one, Luke.
Here all night.
To be truthful, we do not actually have to provide a porta potty for the
Oh, I
launch.
thought we did.
We do not.
So if
Don't
we
you
have-
read your email I sent you?
Nice one, Craig.
We
So
clarified,
it seems to me, I mean, the idea is to have it go back to Park and Rec sounds like a really good idea. And if we need to set up a subcommittee outside of Park and Rec to investigate it further, I would definitely support that. But I think what I'm hearing is, yeah, let's pursue it, but we need to get a little bit more into the weeds. Is that fair, council?
Yeah.
Okay, is this an okay for a discussion item to move on to our next item? Lou, are you good with that? Yep. Okay.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hepner. Next up is the Rockwell condominiums project update. Mr. Screama.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and City staff. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you and give you an update. You'll remember when we gave you an update 6 weeks or so ago, we were still in the process of doing our final engineering and getting our final costs for the project. Unfortunately, since then, we've completed that work, and the costs have come in much higher than we anticipated. Therefore, we're not going to be able to proceed with the plans as approved. However, we are looking at options of coming back before you for a reapproval. The cost overruns were due primarily to the engineering and costs associated with the underground parking. On top of that, our concrete and steel prices have remained very high. And as you're aware, since we started the project over a year ago, the interest rates have doubled and they're expected to increase through the rest of this year. So that's the reason that the costs went over what we anticipated. Our new plan is concept only. We're considering removing the underground parking altogether and putting it within our building. We would, of course, honor what we originally presented to you, and that is the same historic architecture, the extension of the public boardwalk, the public bathrooms, the public parking, and the opportunity to have money available for the Village Green. So that's the basic update. We've also have already had good conversations with staff. Special thanks to Mark, Jason, and Bob. We will be pulling the fence back off of the Village Green and reopening the sidewalk in the next couple of weeks, so that will be accessible for public use. So, and we're happy to answer any questions. Also with me tonight are Ken and John from MSI.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
So you guys seem to do a lot of due diligence with this whole project. How did this happen? How did this just go so far sideways?
So I guess I'd ask John to come up because that's more his department. He can speak to those specifics.
And my next question, while he's coming up, you said you'll be bringing something back to us. Approximately when are you expecting to do that?
We did meet with city staff today, and we'll follow their recommendation in the due process. So it's top on our priority list. We'll be working as quickly as possible and following staff direction on that.
To answer the question about the due diligence.
Can you please just identify yourself, please?
Sorry, Mayor. John Coots, MSI General. Conemaugh. So, on the, when we met with the city council, as Jeff said a few weeks ago, we were still getting all of our final proposals back and our final engineering design documents back. A lot of that all kind of happened all at once, and then as we were working through that with the various designers that had engineered the solution for the below grade parking, it quickly became clear that the cost for that had almost doubled over what we had done our preliminary engineering off of. So, for example, originally the hole needed to be 15 to 16 feet deep. It ended up being over 20 feet deep with the engineering. So that extra 4 feet was incredibly costly given the water levels and everything else. So very unfortunate. We don't like going backwards, right? We try to do as much due diligence as possible so that we can avoid situations like this, but it came to a head very quickly. We spent a lot of time over the last month analyzing it, and it was like, all right, we need to talk to the city, obviously let them know what's going on, and then also come up with a redesign. We're working through that, as Jeff said. We always look at it as like, okay, this happened, what can we do now? You know, can we make the boardwalk better? Can we make it so that it impacts the Village Green less? Can we make the building perhaps smaller so that it doesn't, it addresses some of the other concerns that we heard along the way. So our team's working hard on that. And as Jeff said, we definitely want to come back to everybody as soon as possible. I would anticipate within a month or sooner to give them updates on where we're going. We're very much committed to a transparent and quick solution.
Alderman Kavieski.
As far as I understand.
Can you speak into the microphone, please?
As far as I understand, with the way things are right now, the resubmittal process will start again. Some of the aspects of the project, such as the 18 feet that the project was going to come into the Village Green, is null. So that 18 feet remains city property. The parking lot remains city property. And the negotiation between the city and the developer will re-engage once the plans come back for consideration through that process again. I think it's noteworthy, if I'm correct in that statement, for the public to understand that it's starting over from a clean slate that way. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So hopefully anybody who is listening or watching or talking about this doesn't think that you as a developer have the things that were negotiated for what we originally intended to receive in that agreement. And that council coming up will restructure that, and they'll have a chance to review that process in a public eye.
Yeah, I would agree with how you said that, Lou, and I think our team on the design side, we're committed to maintaining the architectural look that was presented. We don't want to change that. Certainly, again, if we can make the boardwalk even bigger and better, we will. And to your point, the parking lot and the village green would all be open for rediscussion and hopefully an even better solution.
Alderman Mulder?
Yeah, continuing on that point, I guess holding up that we'll still do the boardwalk, improve the village green, put in the bathrooms. Those, we were paying for those anyway. Like those weren't gifted to the city. That was the city funding those through this opportunity to partner with you on the project. So I just wanted, that should be really clear that those are our items we were paying for, and not something that is now going to be given back to us yet again on the new plans. They're in the new plans. They're ours. And so it feels like, so whether we do those or not as a city is not a determination based on those plans. It's we determine, are we going to spend our money on those or not?
So that's a good way to put it. I would agree with that.
A big piece of this plan, though, was the public aspect component of the boardwalk, the redesign to the village green. I mean, that was why exceptions were given.
Exactly.
For the building, so it could be torn down, a very historic building in our downtown, with the understanding something really great was going to be put in there with exceptional public benefits. So what I don't understand right now, so is the boardwalk off the table then? Is that what I'm understanding? Okay, that's
no.
what I don't understand, yeah. So I get we're paying with those out of our, our TIF funds, but if the
Basically,
building
the
can't be
core,
Yeah, go-
basically where we are today and what they're telling us is that the plan as approved is no longer, it's null and void. And they're going to come back with another option for us, and we're going to start over and look at it.
So when you say no to the board, you mean yes, the boardwalk is off the table, that plan is done?
That plan is done.
Yeah, so why did you say no?
No, the whole plan itself, which includes the boardwalk, is all null and void.
Okay.
So we're starting over.
But
But the new plan includes the boardwalk. So the goal.
Could,
yeah,
we
I
don't-
mean,
we don't-
No, but
Potentially, but yeah, the goal is to keep
Correct.
everything in
yeah, but
place.
the plan is off the table, everything's gone, we're starting from scratch. The
Correct.
building's gone.
Correct. What they're basically telling us is that they value some of those things, those public amenities, and they want to keep the architectural design. And we don't know, there's nothing we can do, there's nothing we can act on until we see what comes. But it's basically, you have to start over. Alderman Rozak.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is that there's going to be some similarities. The project is going to look very similar in many respects, but with some different concepts. My presumption would be if they're not building the basement parking and that structure and doing all that, that potentially the timeline could be roughly similar. Is that fair?
It certainly removes 4 to 5 months from the schedule that we were planning on, because that underground parking was going to be a pretty extensive part. But we also recognize that starting over is also probably going to take 4, 5, 6 months.
Right,
So
because for the approval process to go through the whole thing is probably at least 3, 4 months, probably on our best day, with all the notices we have to do. So, I mean, depending upon what gets approved or not approved, roughly possibly the same timelines. But, I'm optimistic, cautiously optimistic, but there's a lot. I mean, we're kind of starting from square one again. So, good luck.
Alderman Kavieski.
So, with the public now aware of this and the Village Green accessible for summer activities, because the fence is gonna be moved, the parking lot's gonna be available for parking during the course of this spring, summer, fall, foreseeable future. There is a portion of the existing building that was left on that northern side that has some shoring up. Is that the way, what is that site gonna remain visually and from a safety standpoint, and with that part of the building, is that gonna, do you have any thoughts on that? that you
yeah,
can share?
I guess the arrangement between both Rockwell and the building owner to the north, we're working on that. That's really two private parties, we're coming up with a solution for that. So what we're committed to doing right now is getting the fencing moved to the property line currently, getting the parking lot and the sidewalk back into usability for the public, getting it all cleaned up, so that we're not impeding on any of that any longer than we have to, and making sure that the site is secure. And just back to the previous comments, I think I just wanted to be clear, our intent is to come back with a design that from the outside is very similar to what we've already presented. We're not gonna cut anything, if that makes sense, but we certainly recognize that the council has the ability to now look at it with fresh eyes. So hopefully that came across in how I was saying it. We're not gonna bring back a whole different design on the outside. We want all that to stay the same.
John, in the interim, is the hole going to be filled in, or is it going to stay the way it is now?
I can work with city staff on that.
Okay,
and find
that's
out,
fine.
Yeah, what the best route is. Yep.
Alderman Altman Cloth?
Do you have a date in which the fence is gonna be taken care of?
We met with the fencing contractor today, and all of the fencing had been driven into the ground. It's not sandbagged fencing, so it will take a little bit longer to move, and then we also have to figure out the sidewalk area. Our goal is to get it done within a week. It might take 2 weeks, so we've impressed that upon the contractor. 2 weeks max, I'll just say that. Hopefully faster.
Alderman Mulder?
I was a supporter of this throughout, and several times on record saying that the fifth floor, the height was necessary because of the incredible expense of the subterranean work that needed to be done. And so now that that subterranean work is no longer as extensive, we need to be considering the height of that building. I don't know that I'd support where it was that we voted on. Your costs have changed dramatically, so the need to have that premium top floor should have changed as well, to have the same kind of margin of return on it. So as you're doing designs, I think you need to be considering that, because that the whole flavor of this changes. So I think the whole economics changed for you, the whole economics changed for me as well. So.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for the update, and thank you for working with staff. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move, Kavieski.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, we're going to take about 1 minute and then move into our common council meeting.
Alderman Cloth.
Here.
Alderman Ellis. Alderman Spiegelberg.
Here.
Alderman Mulder.
I'd like to entertain a motion for approval of minutes for February 21st, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Moving on, I'd like, without objection, to be able to move item 12A forward for the special proclamation for James O'Connor. Any objection? Okay, we're going to move forward with that. It is my honor to give a special sorry, I'm a little choked up here. Proclamation today. Whereas the city of Oconomowoc in the past has recognized and honored individual business owners and worthy citizens. And whereas Jim O'Connor has been a resident, advocate, and a community supporter for over 40 years. And whereas his given reputation and experience, Jim relocated his business to Oconomowoc to serve the Lake Country area. And whereas Jim's business has been built on repeat and referral customers, as well as a work culture which maintains a high employee retention. And whereas the success at James O'Connor Select Auto is attributable to this simple and effective business motto, treat others as you wish to be treated. And whereas, as part of the business succession, Jim has recently extended the business legacy through incorporating Laura O'Connor, Jeff Wood as equal owners, and whereas with Sue by his side, the O'Connors have been longtime residents of the city of Oconomowoc and have fostered the values and lifestyle of the city of Oconomowoc life. And whereas the O'Connors have contributed to the joy and quality of life through their involvement and commitment to the Oconomowoc Chamber of Commerce, Oconomowoc Food Pantry, Lake Area Free Clinic, Lions Club, Kiwanis Club, OHS Booster Club, OHS Grilling to Give the Post-Prom, the Oconomowoc Skate Park, the John and Lavinia Rockwell Park, the VFW, and as a longtime Good Samaritan. So giving to others is who Jim is. Thank you, Jim. This past year, Jim supported a Ukrainian mother and her 4-month-old son who are fleeing the war in their homeland. So not only are we looking at all the things that are done locally, but also he expands beyond that. And whereas Jim's business and community commitment is also exemplified by his passion and years of support of the Oconomowoc Silver Streak as a way to assist others and provide transportation for those in need. Now therefore, I, Robert P. Magnus, Mayor of the City of Oconomowoc, do formally and with personal pleasure recognize and congratulate Jim O'Connor on his business success and contributions to the Oconomowoc community, and encourage all who have had the opportunity to acknowledge, celebrate, and extend their appreciation as I formally declare March 17th, 2023 as Jim O'Connor Day. In witness thereof, I hereto set my hands and cause the official seal of the City of Oconomowoc on the 7th day of 2023. March 17th, remember, share with others, is Jim O'Connor Day. So I'd like to have the council please join us.
Can't get any better. Right? What?
Yes.
So let's give one more round of applause for Jim O'Connor and his family. Okay, now we have to move on to business. If you would like to make a public comment, there are blue cards sitting right up here. One of our staff will grab them from you. If you'd like to make a comment, we're moving into our comment section of the Common Council meeting. When you come up, please state your name, your address, and what city or village or municipality that you live in. You have 3 minutes. It's not a two-way dialogue. It's a one-way discussion of issues or things that you would like to make sure that your Common Council has an opportunity to hear. So right now I have 2 cards. If anybody else, if you could get them up fairly quickly so we can keep moving things along. There is a little timer on my laptop, so when you'll start to hear music of some sort when it goes off. So I'll ask you to kind of close up your thoughts if you're beyond the 3 minutes.
It's a point of order, Madam Clerk. Did we approve the minutes from
Yeah.
February 21st? Did
Yeah.
we?
Yes, we
Okay,
did.
I'm sorry. I totally missed it.
And you're on Park and Rec. You're gonna miss me so much.
How many more weeks do you have left, Lou?
Okay. Moving on to our open comments. We have George Justice. George, would you come up, please? Hi, George.
So George Justice.
I'm Jennifer Justice.
Great, and we're gonna have you try to speak into the microphone if you can.
Our address is 552 Cassie Lynn Lane, and we live in the city of Oconomowoc. And our comment is in regards to 9A on the agenda. So dear members of the Common Council, my wife and I are here today to request that you reconsider the recommendation made by statewide services to deny our claim for damages caused by 2 separate power surges to our home. As responsible and contributing members of the community, we believe that the city should take responsibility for its equipment malfunctions and the resulting damages. We hope that you can empathize with us and ask yourselves, what would your expectations be if this situation happened to you and your residents? On Sunday, December 4th, 2022, at around 6 a.m., we woke to crackling and popping noises coming from the smoke detector in our bedroom. We discovered that the lights in our home were flickering and we could smell smoke. We quickly turned off the power, called 911, and evacuated our home with our 2 children. The fire department arrived, and upon investigation, 3 smoke detectors were found to have caught on fire. The fire department was unable to determine the cause of the incident, but they advised us that to have an electrician inspect the home's electrical system. The following day, Monday, December 5th, we had an electrician from Lights Out LLC perform a thorough check of the home's electrical system. The electrician found no damage to the internal wiring and could not explain the surge or why the smoke detectors had caught on fire. Then on Monday, December 19th, we had experienced a second surge that knocked out additional electrical equipment and tripped numerous breakers at the panel. We contacted our neighbors and no one else had lost power. Our electrician recommended that we contact Oconomowoc Utilities, and they found that the cause of the power surge was a loose wire at the pedestal. They repaired it and assured us that we would have no further issues. The damages from these 2 separate power surges totaled $3,288.07. But statewide services has recommended that the city deny our claim, citing immunity because the last inspection of the pedestals within the 5-year window. We acknowledge that there's no evidence indicating that the utility has neglected any ministerial duties as mentioned in the memorandum before you. However, we ask, does this absolve the utility of all responsibility to uphold the performance and quality of its products or services? As responsible community members, we firmly believe that the city should accept liability for the damages caused by the power surges, which were a direct outcome of the city's equipment failure. We believe it is the city's duty to take accountability for its equipment and service, regardless of whether the city was at fault for the dislodged or damaged wire. Had this issue been related to wiring within our home, we would take full responsibility. Additionally, we would like to bring to your attention that the previous inspection took place on 3/21/18, which means the next inspection was due on 3/21/23, roughly 90 days from the occurrence of the surges. We also wish to emphasize that my wife and I have been dutifully paying our taxes and utility bills since 2005, and we trust that it is the city's responsibility to provide secure and dependable electrical service to its residents. In conclusion, we hope that you put yourselves in our shoes and consider the impact this has had financially on our family, and ask yourselves whether denying our claim, despite the discretionary immunity granted to the city under Wisconsin Statute 893.80, is it the right thing to do? We are hopeful that you will make the right decision and uphold the city's commitment to its residents' safety and well-being. Sincerely, George and Jennifer Justice, residents of the city of Oconomowoc. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you. Sorry about the buzzer. I'm just getting used to this new computer. Thank you. Next up is Jerry Wendt.
Good evening. Jerry Wendt, W155 Allen Road, City of Oconomowoc, but I live in the town of Concord. I just want to be here to express my support for the Olympia project. Those of you that know me, you know I've been involved with the area for quite a while, and I think it's really a great use of the property. It's an excellent design, moving from high density to low density where the existing single-family dwellings are now. So I just want to stand on record as being for the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other blue cards?
Here comes one, I think.
I think there's another one in the back, too. Ma'am, do you have a blue card? Thank you. Terry Burke. I got lucky.
Yeah. My name's Terry Burke. I'm at 845 St. Andrews Drive over in Briarwood subdivision, next to the Olympic Farms proposed expansion. I'm not naive. I realize that it is going to expand. What I'm asking is take another look at where we're at with it right now. If you look at the existing zoning, obviously it shows a lot of green space. If you look at the current, how it's supposed to be zoned, there's some UR, which is urban residential, not real sure. Anyway, the point is, if you look at it right now, the way it's set up, there's a centralized area where there's a lot of expansion possibility. Around the perimeter, it's kind of wide open. When I flip over to the Newman proposal, which I totally understand, it is extremely dense. Living on Briarwood, I have concerns about McKinsey Drive because that shows as an access road. I think most of my friends in the subdivision are fairly unhappy about seeing that happen. We'd like to be able to at least restrict it for construction and find a better way, since right down the block is another access. The other probably finally is that I feel that with all the expansion, I understand it's a good thing, except that the city is losing its charm. When you walk in, I've had more people come up and say the building here is crazy, from Pabst Farm to what you see all the way around the city, out by St. Matt's. I understand we need to have growth, I understand we need to have revenue. I hope somebody's doing the equation to make sure that the costs of the services equal the revenue, because my taxes are doing just fine the way they are. So that was my brief point, but I think more importantly, be very careful about how we do expand. If we could put this one on hold and rethink it and maybe do it a little better, or maybe with a little more green space, or a little more border, or a little more Oconomowoc cultured way, if you would. Just some free thought. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jane Owen.
Good evening. My name is Jane Owen. My topic is the upcoming election to vote. I encourage everybody to vote by or on April 4th, especially new voters, residents in town, Oconomowoc High School graduating seniors. It should be over the half of the class eligible to vote by April 4th. I call this election the instant gratification election. You see new council members take their seats right away. The OASD referendum gets approved or not, as well as other elections moving up the line. Reminder, city debt is just under $45 million right now. OASD, Oconomowoc Area School District debt is at $68.89 million, for a total of over $112 million for people who own property in the city. For 5,000 students in the district, that comes out to $13,769 per student, or if they take a gap year and work it off at $7.25 an hour, full-time, comes out to $15,000 and $15,080 gross for 1 year before they go to college to pay off their share of the debt. For the Exonia expansion, they have 288 students, but they live in the We Energy liquid natural gas blast zone for evacuation to the community church or to Watertown when something happens, when that opens in a year or two. Already, some of the district students for Oconomowoc that should attend Exonia go to Watertown or drive all the way to Heartland instead. The school district would rip out new water boilers installed approximately 2018, destroying over $1 million worth of work that we paid for. Projected interest rate about 5% to add 14,000 square feet to the high school. Zero of that money goes for academics. Referendum amount about $75 million in principal, not including interest. Make sure you're educated before you go to vote. There's still over $10 million available they can spend from Fund 46, as well as about $3 million of COVID funds in ESSER Projects 1, 2, and 3. It is eligible for air exchange systems. If you want to analyze from a school website, usnews.com, 2018-19, revenue per student for the district is $15,138. Expenditures only $11,913. Difference is $3,225 per student at 5,000 students. Comes out to $16 million a year that they haven't told us what they're doing with it. Think carefully, get educated before you vote. Info session on Thursday night, info sessions next week. Learn before you vote, absentee ballot. Find out what the total cost of this project is and make your choice wisely. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to make a comment before we close the comment session? With no further blue cards, we're going to move on to our consent agenda items, which there are none. And on to our committee reports. We'll start with finance. Consider act on resolution 23. Sorry about that.
Time is up.
Your time is up. Time's up.
I haven't figured out how to turn it off the other way. Consider act on resolution 23-R3105 approving budget amendments to the 2023 budget for continuing appropriations.
Sure, thank you. Tonight is the annual continuing appropriations budget amendment. So at the end of '22, if we have projects that were budgeted for but are not completed, this transfers that funding into the 2023 budget to complete those projects. A complete list of them is in your packet with an explanation of what they're for. Along with this is also the amendment that reserves funds for items that were in the budget. So that would be for the community center replacement and repair fund. There's also developer trees in there and some police donations. Again, those are all itemized in your packet.
Do you have any questions for Ms. Murray Sullivan? I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second, Altman Cloth.
Any further comments or questions? Call roll, please.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
And for the folks that are here or listening, these items have been dealt with at a committee level in much greater detail, just so that you're aware. Next item, consider act on resolution 23-R3106, approving budget amendments for the 2022 tax incremental financing District 7 budget.
I have one final cleanup amendment for you for 2022. That would be for TIF District number 7. For the TIF districts, they operate under a project plan and a budget within that project plan. We don't budget for them in the annual city budget. If a TIF district becomes a major fund or it has major projects during the year, it's spent a lot of money, borrowed money, then we recommend doing a budget amendment to true up that budget for the year so that you can see it in the financial statements in the year-end audit. So that amendment is in front of you tonight and in your packets as well. So the other thing that happens with TIF districts, because they work on a project budget, we do an annual report after the audit that will go to you, and it also goes to the Joint Review Board at our annual meeting. and is available on our website.
Any questions or comments? I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved, Altman Cloth?
Second, Kavieski.
Any further comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Next item, consider act on resolution 23-R3108, authorizing the use of ARPA funds for a full lead service line replacements.
Yeah, thank you. Tonight you have a resolution in front of you to allow the use of ARPA funds for full public and private lead service line replacements. For example, in '22, we used ARPA funds for the public side only. On the private side, we used a DNR grant. There is no grant opportunities available for '23 for us. So we're proposing to use ARPA for full lead service line replacements. That will allow us to continue our lead service line replacement program as it is, same terms, $3,000 direct payment if they use a pre-qualified contractor. So we're looking for a motion to approve Resolution 23R3108.
Any questions or comments?
I have one question. Why do we not have grant money this year?
We applied for grant money. We did not get grant money this year.
Did they give a reason?
They reorganized the way they looked at communities, and Oconomowoc did not qualify for principal forgiveness grant money.
Thank you.
Sounded like it was an income deal, right? That's my understanding.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I just remember Joe say, I think it was Joe last year, said something about like, if we don't use the money, we may not get it in the future. Or did I don't know if maybe I misheard that. Did we not use enough of, I mean, we didn't shoot our own selves in the foot from not using it.
Nope, not
did
at
we?
all.
Okay, good. Okay.
Any other comments? I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So move, Kavieski.
Second, Schellpepper.
Any further questions or comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper, or excuse me, Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Thank you. On to our Plan Commission items. Council, please recognize that these are first readings, the first three that are tied together. Mr. Gallo, if you could go through these for the audience and for the council, that would be wonderful.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. The next 7 items on the agenda all pertain to the same thing. It's the Olympia Hills. There's a number of items, including an ordinance that's in your packet to amend the city's comprehensive plan. Then, if that is approved, you may act on a rezoning ordinance, which is in your plan packet. Then we would have the ordinance to create a planned development overlay district on this property. And then we would have a series of certified survey maps to reconfigure the parcels that would then adhere to the rezoning. We held a public hearing on this at the last meeting. We had 21 people that spoke. Some were in favor, some had questions. I gave a presentation. I have that with me if you have questions. I know you didn't get to ask me any questions, but the Plan Commission did recommend approval of all 7 items back on February 8th. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. If you want me to go in more detail, let me know, but otherwise I have the slides from last meeting.
And for the council, that was based on the recommendation that the land would be purchased.
Yes, yeah, it all has to be, a closing has to occur, and this would all take effect upon the closing, yes.
Alderman Shellpepper.
What would currently be allowed, what would the allowed use by right be in this space right now? If no permits were given, no TIFs, anything, what's the by right use for this?
Great question, and I should just, for the benefit of the audience, maybe people looking at home, the site that we're talking about is 236 acres. It is north of Oconomowoc Parkway. It's west of Summit Avenue, east of Paganica Golf Course, and and south of, this is Snyder Way up there, as well as Robrook Lane. Great question. The use of the property all comes down to zoning. What is it currently zoned? And we have the exhibit shown there on the left side. Currently, this is what it's zoned. RML is 80 acres of the 236. That's this brown color here. That is what's currently zoned, and that's a residential multi-unit low zoning district, meaning multi-unit, meaning multi-family dwellings, apartments, condominiums, that type of thing, at 8 dwelling units per acre. So 80 acres, there's a 48, a 24, and a 8. 8 units times 80 is 640 units. So that's what would be allowed right now. UR is actually an urban reserve district. That's a holding zone for future development. That was the previous golf course, Paganica. UR, I mean, that doesn't allow a lot of uses. That would be like farmland is allowed in that. And very low recreational impact uses like a golf course.
But basically, the 640 units of RML, that's what we're legally obligated to approve that to a certain extent, correct? I mean, that's by right, that's is set in the comp plan right now.
Right.
All that.
Zoning controls.
Right.
And that trumps the comp plan even, because that's what they have the use allowed for.
Right.
And that's what they have by right. They have
Right.
640 units plus an additional area over here that's this reddish orange color, that's GC, general commercial. So they can do some commercial as well as multifamily out there.
I think it's important to note that because we're kind of dealing with certain options here. To me, the PUD kind of gives some more options in terms of a diverse housing stock. It opens up some more opportunities for the commercial in that area. It provides a true public benefit in terms of what could be done with the Oconomowoc Parkway. So I think, that's when we talk about the existing zoning exhibit. Sure, that sounds great, but we're still talking about 640 units here. Let's all be clear there. So if we're worried about schools or public services, which I am, that's still on the table and really kind of takes the city out of the equation and having a negotiating seat at the table to a large extent in terms of trying to encourage the kind of growth that a lot of people in this community want to see. The ski hill, the commercial up there, that's something people, you hear all the time of how just a bedrock kind of cornerstone entertainment event draw it could be. So I think that's important in piece to this. And like I said, the Parkway is also an important piece to this. So I just wanted to point that out before we get too deep into the conversation.
Alderman Kavieski.
Kind of plays off of Alderman Shellpepper. In the residential multifamily, one of the things that I've heard most over the last 6 years is all the multifamily. The development being proposed has more single family, which it is diverse and is more representative of what the community has expressed interest in ensuring materializes as we grow. One of the things that we hear is, wow, we're growing so fast. Well, we've had economic conditions that have allowed for that. This is privately held property now. It was privately held property before, and the will and desire to develop it is materializing to the community's benefit. It is not publicly held property that is now being developed by the city. It is being provided with input from the city, but it is their right to develop private property rights for our citizens, and as we develop are not something that the city nor the electeds take lightly. And those who would encourage the city to stop growing or to selectively pick those winners or losers of who gets to develop when and where, I have a hard time with that. I'm excited about a project that has the ability to add to the energy and to the event-driven destination that's family-friendly, which is Oconomowoc, should be exciting to the community as a whole. There have been a lot of concerns brought up, and there's been a lot of time spent by council members and by the mayor, and I think we'll go through some of those, but to Alderman Shellpepper's position, this is a diverse housing stock. It provides for a lot of community benefit, and I'm excited to see how this discussion plays out, and I'm very much in support of it.
Other comments or questions? Alderman Altman-Cloth?
Look, actually, kind of going off of what Lou said, and this is something that I've really struggled with in the last 2 weeks of conversations on this and public hearings and whatnot. And what really made me think about this was, I don't know if it was an email or a phone call from someone who had said they had moved to a neighborhood or built a house in like 2018 or 2016, and we're not the community that she built her house in. We've gotten too big. And I just couldn't help but think the council that was probably around in 2000, whatever year it was, they probably had the same public feedback. No new building. And I don't ever want us to be a community that shuts our door to new people. I have had several friends over the course of the last couple of years try to buy houses in our city, and it's darn near impossible. I mean, what the houses are going for way over asking value, I mean, it's insane. So I guess, I grew up in Milwaukee, I moved to Oconomowoc. I don't want to live in Milwaukee, but I don't think we're ever going to be Milwaukee. And I don't ever want to be the person that shuts the doors to our city, to other people. And I don't think we're losing our charm, and I don't want to be disrespectful to the person that said that, and we've heard that a lot. We have more charm today than we did 10, 15 years ago. I mean, look at our downtown. Our downtown was dead 15 years ago. My husband and I, we used to get in the car and go to Cedarburg. I can't even tell you the last time I was in Cedarburg. I go downtown. So, I know, it's just my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, and I'd like to just give a little shout out to two aldermen that have really engaged their district, Alderman Douglas and Alderman Rozak, because they've really tried to listen to the community members where this development directly affects. So hats off to both of you. And a comment to share with the council, I think it's very important if this does start to go forward, that we work very hard with the developers to try to have the least negative impact on the people that already live here. So you live in a community, and you shouldn't have the people that have been strong community members take the hit for new growth for people that have never even been here. And I think that if we have that type of attitude, and I've heard that from those two aldermen and many of you here on council, how do we make it even better, and how can we reach out to those constituents that are going to be affected by this and simply ask them, how can we make it better while we're in this process? And so just kind of a personal comment that I think is really important, and also a challenge for the developers who are here as well, is that we want to make sure that this is something special and has the least negative impact, whether it's Mackenzie, whether it's Byron, whether it's St. Andrews, all of those different areas. That's important, and I think that we can't lose sight of that. Any other comments from council? Alderman Rozak.
Yeah, thanks for those comments, Mayor. I think to a lot of other folks' points, Chaz is right on point. Right now, as it's zoned, as of right, the developer, and what I've been trying to explain to folks out in our areas is, as of right, they could build 640 units in there. This current proposal we're looking at is 622. That leaves another 18 to 20 sewer recs, and it's all based on how many sewer recs they have there to some degree. For the other red shaded area, it's kind of like a red blotchy area. That's for potential commercial in the future. Frankly, the developer, when they first came to us, God, I don't know if this was November, December, we asked for a better master kind of design for this whole area. And not only, can they get, the units in to make money and to make it successful and viable, but also to activate some of the commercial stuff, and they've done that. There's certainly been some bumps along the road. I'm going to ask tonight for an exhibit to the planned development overlay that addresses a few concerns about buffering areas and some, additional tree and green details around these edges where again, to Mayor's point, where the homes kind of abut adjacent properties for folks that have been here for 15, 20, 30 years. I think we need to take that into account, and that needs to be looked at. I also think what we should be looking at is something to address in the development plan, and I'm not going to call out specific things here tonight, but we need to look at the connections to Mackenzie. We need to look at traffic studies, et cetera, as part of the development plan. And the developers indicated to us that, they're happy to look at those things as part of the development plan, which is really where some of the kind of the devil's in the detail, the devil's in the development plan. And that's a big document. And that's where a lot of these things will ultimately be addressed. But I will be asking for some of those things tonight. The other thing I guess I just want to say about the development in whole, even though it's a little denser than other parts of the city, it's probably less dense than older parts of downtown. There's a lot of amenities you don't see in parts of downtown, like, community parks that they're going to build and maintain, and walking paths, things we didn't see in older developments, sidewalks and connectivity. Those are the things that have been a hallmark of since I've been on council, trying to push developers to do, which is create connectivity, specifically walking. The front part, Olympia Fields, has done a great job with that. What they've done with the connectivity and with the walking paths and the bike paths and the connections is great. This will add to that. And I think that should be a positive for the community, along with potential other commercial around the ski hill. So I'm in favor of it. I think this is a huge win for the community. I think it will be ultimately more charming than an abandoned golf course. I think it'll be more charming than what was proposed there, which was this block kind of building in the middle, islands of block building in the middle of that. It doesn't make sense, and it's not probably viable anymore.
Alderman Kavieski?
I just wanted to talk about the speed in which this is occurring as well, because that's been something that's come up. It is not coming before the community in an expedited way. This has been an area of redevelopment for a long time that has had challenges associated with it, for getting the previous owner and the vision to come together. And we have seen the front half of Olympia manifest itself in a way that I think the community is starting to see that and get excited about that. At one point, we were talking about what the old Olympia Resort could potentially be, and there was talk about low-income housing and things of that nature that wasn't feasible. What is feasible and what we see here in front of us is a result of years of hard work by people here sitting in the chamber. Jerry has been very involved in visioning, Mariette, and it's been comprehensively looked at. And this is all coming together as part of a comprehensive vision for this area that embraces the hill as an event-driven destination, the residential and the commercial elements that have been put in place on Summit Avenue. So it's not been just a short journey to get here. It's been a long journey to get here. And that this is a result of that. So there's an impression out there because a lot of people pay attention at the very end. This has been a lot of work, and there's a lot of work yet to come, to Alderman Rozik's point. The devil's in the detail. But the continued progression of this should be exciting for everybody, and it's good stuff.
Any other questions or comments? Alderman
Last comment, I'm
Shellpepper.
just going to get on the record of why I'm supporting this, because I've generally been pretty skeptical of some of the development we've been doing, and, I particularly oppose the TIF that just, kind of we saw fall apart before us with the Rockwell development. So I'm going to kind of lay it out just for my constituents to understand. So it's the completion of the Oconomowoc Parkway, and I think that presents a unique opportunity for our current residents, not people in the future, but for people who right now live in the city. It's important for people on the west side of town, the south side of town. It's important for existing residents. The upsizing of the pipe, which is going to provide additional expansion and infrastructure opportunities. It holds out the hope for commercial opportunities at the ski hill that wouldn't happen otherwise. It's going to provide a diverse housing stock to support, employers in the state who are right now are hurting for employees. It's going to provide ownership opportunities for families who might not have otherwise had ownership opportunities in townhomes. I think it was like we're looking at the mid-3s to upper 300s for some of these townhomes. And why we shouldn't put it on hold and keep kind of talking about this and dragging our feet is because of Rockwell. I think that's another example of why dragging feet, of slowing things, is it can actually hurt us, it can hurt the city, and it can hurt people who want homes. This isn't the time to kind of put more red tape necessarily. It's a time to provide a lot of scrutiny and oversight, but also make sure we're looking out for the city's interests and not hurting ourselves by slow walking it. And I am committed to working with the neighbors to the north and the south in Mackenzie Lane to make sure that that road is safe and that the people in that community feel safe, and that the people who live to the south on Andrews Drive, who live on Byron Drive, Browning Circle, that we're looking out for them because they're significantly impacted by this, and they mean a lot to me as current residents as well. That's where I'm at. Thanks, Mayor.
If you're ready, I'd like to entertain a motion.
As a point of order, and I don't know who I should ask this to, whether it's Jason or Mark, but we had talked about, when we make the motion, I think it's gonna be on the zoning, which will be item 8B, the contingent on the purchase and the signing of the development agreement. The land use plan, probably we don't need to do that with. I think we wanna do that with the rezone, because the rezone doesn't take effect unless they actually finish the purchase. And also, in my opinion, should be contingent upon the signing of the developer's agreement.
Right, we have 3 items, and then we have some certified survey maps. And the first 2 are really pretty straightforward. These are the first item that you're acting on is amending the comprehensive plan.
Yep.
And that would then change this, and that's just saying that's a land use motion. Then the next one is zoning, and that would match the land use. The third one is the key one. That's the general development plan. That's an ordinance that locks in this plan that's on the screen with the zoning. There's exemptions and there's public benefits listed. Those have conditions in that ordinance. And if you want to add any conditions to this plan, that would be a place. If there's a developer's agreement, if you want traffic study results, if you want design standards incorporated in. So there's things in there. I've got some of the standards, the Plan Commission did make a recommendation. It's ordinance number 23-01044. And I'll just kind of read them out. Number 1 is the general development plan. It references what's up on the screen. 2 is the property description. 3 is the underlining zoning. 4 is the phasing plan that they submitted. 5 is platting requirements. 6 is a developer's agreement. 7 talks about public construction. 8 is the exemptions. 9 is the benefits. And then we get into some of the more boilerplate language regarding drainage, impact fees, easements, et cetera.
Yes, so Jason, that section 6 in the plan development overlay already has a requirement that they enter into a developer's agreement. My point was, do I want to make that, I'd like to make the zoning contingent upon them entering into a developer's agreement that addresses some of the concerns that we've raised tonight.
Yeah, that would be a condition that says the zoning doesn't take effect until.
Correct. Correct.
And I think we also discussed it with the CSMs. So we wanted to set this up so that if this deal doesn't go through, we haven't changed the zoning, we haven't approved new CSMs for this whole area that someone else is now gonna have to come back and deal with. That if this deal doesn't go through, land sale doesn't go through, developer's agreement doesn't go through, it reverts back to exactly what is there today.
Yeah, so I agree with, so with items 8D and 8, D, E, F, and G as well, correct?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, I can make those motions then contingent on that when we get there. But I don't think we need that, at least in this one. So I'll make a motion to approve the comprehensive land use plan as provided in item 8A and waive the second reading.
Second.
Do we have any further comments or discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg. Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
On to our next item, Jason, if you want to describe it.
Well, this is the rezoning then. Now that the land use plan is adopted, the city has a plan that, and it says every decision made that the council makes has to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. We just amended that, so now the zoning would be consistent. What's before you on the screen on the right-hand side here, this area would be consistent with the land use plan. So this is an ordinance, Plan Commission did recommend this as well.
Well, out of curiosity, Jason, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm just curious, was there any objections from the planning commission at all? Was anyone that voted yea or nay?
It was 7-0 vote.
Of which one? Of the zoning? No, the zoning, I recall, Raul, was unanimous. The PDA, there are different ways, and I think there was one nay.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. Well, I'll make a motion to approve the zoning as presented in item 8B with the contingency 2-1 that the land be purchased by the Newman Developments and that development agreement be entered into with the city.
Second.
Are you waiving the second reading? or
I'm
no?
sorry, yes, with waiving the second reading.
Okay.
Can't waive the first reading.
That's true. Alderman
I'd like to
Kavieski?
second that.
Any further questions? Alderman Ellis?
In planning, my concern was that the land had not been purchased as of yet, and that we were putting the cart before the horse. And then I needed more information at that point in time, which I was not getting. So I was, the decision that I had made was to vote no, nay at that time.
Oh.
But now we've got a lot more information, so.
Alderman Kavieski?
I obviously seconded the waiving of the second reading. There have been comments about when council does that. There's been a lot of discussion, a lot of time put into where we're at right here, and to me, there's no benefit for additional information coming forward. We've vetted a lot of those questions in closed sessions and in public forums, and that is why I support waiving that second reading. It's not to try to limit additional public input. This has been out there, and I just think it's noteworthy why we do that. It's not required that we do 2 readings. If council were to so choose to just do a single reading, we could do that. But for topics that warrant it, it's there.
Alderman Ellis?
I believe that the information we have now is more than sufficient to be able to make a good determination on what we should be doing. So once again, at that time, at planning, that information was not there. And now that it is, I feel a lot comfortable with the decision I'm making.
Call roll, please.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
On to our next item, Jason.
Item 8C is the ordinance to create the plan development overlay. With a plan development, you have your basic zoning uses and bulk requirements that the zoning code allows, but then a PD does allow some flexibility with that to allow some more creative development standards. So they looked at what this proposal before you, and they said we do need some exemptions from the code. And we went through all those at the public hearing. There's a handful of things regarding setbacks on corner lots, setbacks from side lot lines, et cetera. And they said in return for that, we'll give you some public benefits, and we went through the whole host of attainable housing, open space, trails and pathway for the public to use. They're fixing up a blighted area. So there's a list, and then you're to weigh those out. And the Plan Commission did as well. They saw all the exemptions, and they compared that to the public benefits, and they did recommend approval. I went through the conditions earlier. There's probably a couple dozen conditions attached to this, and it does lock this plan in. If you'd like design standards, that's something that we did on other similar nearby PDs that we could do similar for this. The developers agreement is already listed in there, but if you want anything about traffic studies or potentially a trail exhibit of how wide that's going to be and what the trail's made out of and that type of thing, those could be put in the PD ordinance at this time.
And I would suggest to council that you strongly consider those recommendations that were just shared from Mr. Gallo.
A couple quick questions.
Alderman Rozak?
Yeah, on page 4, the PD overlay, item 9A, blight elimination. We've talked about this in various sessions, but it says the existing building will be removed that has water and mold damage containing asbestos. What is that about? What is that? Is that the chalet?
Correct.
Yeah. But my understanding is right now that that's not in place. So one of the things we probably should do there, and we've had discussions with the developer about this, how this will play out, is that my understanding is that will be removed at their cost within 3 years if nothing happens with the chalet or the ski hill. Am I correct, guys?
Yep.
So I think what we should do there is amend the blight elimination to include a provision that says the existing building will be removed that has water, mold, and mold damage containing asbestos within 3 years of the signing of this agreement.
Would it be within 3 years, or if after 3 years, it doesn't?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess they could do it whenever they want, but.
Okay, all right.
Okay, good point. I'm trying to do this on the fly.
I know.
Because right now it says they'll remove the building now, and I don't think that was part of the discussion.
Well, and part of the discussion is, do we put that in the developer's agreement?
Well,
So
just
it
remove it all
could
from this?
go in here, which is fine, or it could go in the developer's agreement.
Well, why don't we do this then? Let's amend.
Either's fine.
Yeah, I think it could go in the developer's agreement. So what I suggest we do is we say, the existing building will be removed
In
as
accordance-
provided in the
accordance
developer's agreement.
in
Does that
accord-
sound okay?
In accordance with the developer's agreement?
Sure.
You sound like an attorney over there.
6 years?
Yeah, boy, guys. I'll make that motion to amend right now, 9A, and seek a second.
Second?
Any further discussions or comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
And then I guess on the couple of the other items that were discussed, the traffic study and the design standards, I know they're not in here, and we can expand on those too in the developer's agreement, but you guys are here. I'd like to hear from the developer if they're okay doing a traffic study to address or concerns about where traffic will flow in this, because there's other decisions we have to make, as well as if you're amenable to some type of design standards that would be called out later on. Yeah. Whichever one of you wants to answer the question.
My name's Steve DeClean. I'm with Newman Developments. We fully expect to do a traffic study.
Okay.
We're ready to go on that. I'd like to talk about the design standards. I'm a little confused by it. I'm not quite sure where design standards fit in a realm where we're actually building everything. Like we have actual
that's fair.
architecture and pictures of it. You know, I think of design standards as something, you know, in the case of Olympia Fields, there's a number of commercial buildings coming.
You want the
tenants-
look to be the same.
The
versus-
tenants weren't known. We actually are designing the product. So I'm not sure design standards belong in the equation.
And I think it's probably a good idea, because I've heard several things from some of the residents that said, you know, we want to know what it's going to look like. And so I'm not worried about you doing the designs, but we did this the same with Olympia to try to make sure that we have a good quality finished product. I'm confident we will with your group, but I think it's a nice way to mitigate some risk.
Well,
I
and
guess
frankly, Steve, that's the first time I've heard about the design standard concept in this PUD.
Right.
So I guess my question to you is pretty simple. Have you guys done design standards with other subdivisions you've done?
No, because we always have the product.
Because you're doing and building
We
the product.
actually have the product. We're showing pictures of the product, or in the case of Mandel's multifamily, the actual drawings for the product. So I mean, what they would do is they would draw the product and then the design standards to
Yeah,
match
so we
it.
did, so to the mayor's point with Olympia Fields up front, we did have design standards that, not only for the commercial, but also for the apartments there as well, you know, so that they would have a consistent look.
But I think it's because of the drawings probably weren't done.
No, they had drawings, they brought
They had
drawings
drawings,
to us,
yeah.
yeah. I think, what I'd like to do is add, I mean, I think there's still gonna be some negotiation on some of this stuff. And I think there should be some minimal design standards associated with this planned development overlay. I think like with your housing stock, you're gonna show some general pictures of your typical housing stock. You can say, go walk through Lake Country Village, that's kind of what it's gonna look like. Fair, right? On the apartments, I think I'm a little more concerned with that the apartments flow with the other apartments and that similar kind of look. And it doesn't have to be identical, but that it doesn't look like hodgepodge. We've already got 2 sets of different apartments there, and now we're gonna have a third.
Okay.
That's not this hodgepodge, and I think that's what we wanna avoid. Like, they're kind of this light blue and this kind of similar look, and then you guys come in and do red, or something that just looks out of place. So I think we should add a condition in there that includes design standards, and you can work that out with city staff. It's not like it's not very onerous per se.
Fair enough.
You know, I think it gives some consistency that at least the front part of the development. I think you're right, the single family, the townhomes, that's gonna be,
That won't be a big deal.
I don't think that's gonna be an issue. You're gonna show some pictures and that'll be an exhibit to that and that'll be it.
But we'll also have some potential commercial development that we have no idea what it's going to be, where it's going to go in some of these areas. And I think that's what we're trying to make sure we have a little bit of control over in the same way that we did for the front of the development with One Garden. I think that's a fair request per council's approval. Alderman Kavieski.
The uniformity in the overlay for the front provides a sense of place. And to a certain extent, that's what I think we're looking for in the back. And that is cohesive. And that goes to that
Right, to
comprehensive
Lou's
plan.
point, we already have a set of design standards for the front part that is probably gonna be cribbed and pretty much copied, you know, within some, you know, with adjustment and discussion between you and city staff. I mean, we already have the look of that area. If the commercial gets expanded, we're gonna want it to have at least some degree of the same feel, I think, in that whole development, especially considering what we're proposing for the rest of the development.
Are you comfortable with that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
Jason, I guess then I would like to make a motion to add 2 items then to section 9, which would be, I don't know what language all to put in there other than traffic study and some agreed design standards with the developer. Perhaps you have some language you could add in, Jason?
Yeah, I can add in design standard language as well as the traffic study. There was also, what did I do with that now? Oh,
We also make comments about the gap between the old developments and the new developments of being a minimum of 50 feet.
Yeah,
Do we want to go to that level of detail here or do it later?
Well, what we had discussed is doing an exhibit, asking for just an exhibit that details the buffer around the existing homes and the new homes, and then some landscaping details or screening around, you know, those areas. Most of them are 50 feet or more. We want that confirmed in an exhibit, and some basic landscaping details around that. And I've discussed that with you guys, some extra tree planting, some basic stuff around these areas for the folks that have lived in these areas, that have mature trees, that have mature yards, you know, and that can be called out as an exhibit that can be approved by city staff. So that's what I would recommend for that, and I think that makes the most sense. I mean, again, to the mayor's point, we're dropping in a huge development in the middle of existing homes that have been there for 30, 40, 50 years. And it is a significant change, and I think we should do everything we can to alleviate that change. And I don't, you know, some additional trees and screening shouldn't be a problem.
So Jason, do you just want to do a summary of these changes, which is one motion, I believe, from Alderman Rozak?
yes, I have, under A, we had a motion that was made and seconded regarding the existing building to be addressed. We have additions to this being a traffic study, the design standards, and an exhibit showing the 50 feet of landscaping. And now I'd like to add one more, an amendment, and this is more of a housekeeping matter. It was brought to my attention just now tonight that the version that you got did not include, under number 8, there was a D that was added, and it was added, I don't know, by the Plan Commission possibly. It's all in bold in this version here. It was another building setback, and this was their duplexes. They're asking for a 0 lot line, so they would like the side lot line to be reduced to 0 feet on one side for the duplex condominiums. I wonder if I can, I think we did show that on the zoning exemption slide during the public hearing, and it was advertised that way. I can show you, these are the townhomes that they would like 0 setback on. The lot line would go right between the garage doors there, and they would have 10 feet on the other side, so it'd be 20 feet between buildings. And that is a zoning requirement that they have a minimum of a 10-foot setback. They would like that
Well,
reduced
they're
to
going to
0.
be duplexes, they can't be, there can't be separation anyway, right?
Right.
Okay. Understood.
Okay. So I would just ask that be added back in from the version that they had from an earlier meeting.
Jason, I think that's fine. I think my third part on the exhibit could be one exhibit, which is that the developer show us what the 50-foot buffer looks like along the edges and where, if at all, they deviate from that, and then some landscaping details as part of that along those areas.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second, Kavieski.
And any further comments or questions, Alderman Kavieski?
The 50 feet is lot line, between lot lines, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Again, I think that's important for that to be on record. It's 50 feet between existing lot line and new lot line for the homes where those pathways are. So if people want to take a look at or think about what that visual is, it's significant buffer between buildings or dwellings. They're not being set right on top of each other.
Right. This plan shows it, you know, from a standpoint, it looks very thin, like it's only 5 or 10 feet, but it's actually 50 feet it's going to be. This is just a concept drawing. It's not to scale or accurate. So this 50 feet will be way in here a little bit, so yeah.
Alderman Altman-Cloth?
On the north end of this, where Byron and Browning Circle are, if we have a 50-foot setback between lot line and lot line, how does that work with the walking path? Does the walking path go through the middle of that 50?
That's what they'll have to show on the exhibit. I think what we've heard from some of the residents that are existing is they would like it closer to the new development lot line.
No, I agree, and it should be that way.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? Call roll, please.
Mayor, I would just like to verify what the motion is, because with all the discussion, I've never actually heard a full motion.
I can restate the motion. I'd like to make a motion to amend the plan development and add add 2 items, 9L and 9K, to add a traffic study, design standards, and then ask that the developer provide an exhibit detailing the 50-foot buffer between the developments and old development, and landscape detail screening for those areas where the new houses abut the old houses.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Is that acceptable to you, Alderman Kavieski?
That's what I seconded, yep.
And we call roll, please.
That's already in there.
Alderman Shellpepper?
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski?
Aye.
Alderman Douglas?
Aye.
Alderman Rozak?
Aye.
Alderman Altman-Cloth?
Aye.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye.
Alderman Mulder?
Aye.
Jason, as a point of order, do you need us to add in that item 8D?
Yeah,
Based on
Let's
what
add
we
it
were
in.
presented?
yeah.
Okay, so then I'll make a final motion to add item 8D, which will add a 0 lot line between the duplexes as shown on the, I guess as shown on the plans.
Thank you.
One
Okay.
question before that gets seconded, just in case you want to add something else. Do we want to, is this a place to add in the Mackenzie not being
No.
through? Okay.
I think that's gonna
We
be
need to
part of
talk
the
about that.
developers.
All right.
Yeah. And we'll need the traffic study.
Just so the residents don't think that we forgot about Mackenzie. I mean, that's a huge piece of what we are gonna fight
Absolutely.
for on
Yep.
this. So
Absolutely.
you're not forgotten.
So do I have a second to Alderman Rozak?
Yes, second.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Next up, I need a motion for the ordinance, please.
I'll make a motion for the item 8C as amended, waiving the second reading.
Second, Ellis.
Any further discussion? Alderman Shell Pepper.
One more piece, and I think this is going to likely be a developers agreement piece as well, but I had spoke with Steve and Brian on Friday. One of the key pieces of the way we're going down is supporting the commercial aspect of the hill. If that does not work out, the idea in, one of the options, if we didn't approve, kind of go down this route, was making the hill an HOA privately owned kind of area, or that area around it. We had discussed if the commercial opportunity didn't work out, if there would still be a public easement access to that hill. Not publicly owned, but still under private ownership, but public easement of some sort that we can address in the developers agreement. I just wanted to get you guys kind of on the record here that that's something you are amenable to.
Steve, if you could just come up to the microphone to confirm.
He's trying to put you on the record.
Yes.
I heard
Yeah.
that loud and clear.
Yeah, we absolutely agree to that. In the event that no commercial activity
Right.
evolves on the hill, we will provide a public easement for the enjoyment of the community.
But hopefully the
Thank you.
commercial aspect works. I mean, that's the goal
That's
right
the goal
here.
here, yep.
That is absolutely the goal.
Call roll, please.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas. Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
On to our next item, consider act on certified survey map number 1 of the Olympia Hills to reconfigure parcels into 3 lots and 1 outlot, 965 Cannon Gate Road.
I'll make a motion to approve item 8D, again contingent upon the purchase and the signing of the developers agreement.
Second, Altman Cloth.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas. Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Consider act on the certified survey map number 2 of Olympia Hills to divide 1 parcel into 2 lots and 1 outlot, 965 Cannon Gate Road.
I'll move items 8E, again contingent upon the purchase of the property and the signing of a developers agreement.
Second, Ellis.
Waiving?
Nope, don't need to waive those.
Yeah, there's no, it's not an ordinance. Call roll, please.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
On to item 8F, consider act on the certified survey map number 3, Olympia Hills dividing 1 parcel into 4 lots, 965 Cannon Gate Road.
So move, Kavieski.
Second, Altman Cloth.
Well, we want to make those
Pursuant,
Oh,
Pursuant.
sorry.
contingent upon the purchase.
can you rephrase that, please, Alderman Kavieski?
As presented pursuant the closing on the property purchase,
And developers agreement.
developers agreement, sorry.
Do we have a second?
Second, Altman Cloth.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Next item is item G, consider act on certified survey map number 4, Olympia Hills dividing 1 parcel into 4 lots, 965 Cannon Gate Road.
I'll make that final motion for 8G, contingent upon the purchase of the property and a signed developers agreement.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
On to new business. Consider act on Resolution 23R3107, authorizing the disallowance of a claim for the Justice family.
All right, in your packet tonight is a recommendation from our insurance company to disallow a claim at 552 Cassie Lynn Lane. The claim is for damage to property due to an electrical surge. So after an investigation, it was found that the cause of the electrical surge was a loose wire in the electric pedestal. The insurance company investigation shows that the utility has maintained the electric pedestal, has done its maintenance as scheduled, and is therefore not negligent in this case. So because of that, the insurance company is recommending that we disallow this claim. Now, I'll defer to our attorney on what follows after this, but it is my understanding that this is a process, a part of a process that we need to do that then allows the claimant 6 months to,
Yeah, they have 120 days
120
to file
days.
suit.
So if this is disallowed, then the claimant has 120 days to file in.
That's correct. And so basically, the insurance company is saying the city's not negligent and the insurance won't pay. So they are looking for us to disallow the claim.
Okay. Alderman Altman Cloth.
So I have two questions. I'll just give you both of them and you decide who wants to answer what. But the first question is, what did the private electrician say that the homeowner had hired? What was his or her conclusion? And then just to kind of give me a little bit more understanding of what's going on here, what is a pedestal?
Okay, I'm going to ask Joe to come up and talk
I had a feeling we
about
were
the
going to,
electric
and I
stuff
was
for
even
ya.
going to say, Mr. Pickard, can you just come up and answer that one? I'm being respectful. He's going to refer to me as Alderman Jennifer now.
A pedestal is a piece of equipment away from a transformer. So in order to serve multiple lots in a subdivision, we set a transformer and then we run wire from that transformer to a pedestal where we can serve multiple lots off of one transformer
So we
location.
own the pedestal?
Yes, it is our property.
Okay, and then do we know what the inspection said from the private electrician?
No, I have no idea what that says.
I mean, living in like the neighborhood that was one of the hardest hit neighborhoods for the hailstorm we had last year, insurance companies don't want to pay out, and they want to, have all the excuses in the world for, why, like my house right now. Oh, your siding's just fine. Well, come look at my siding. So, a little distrust for insurance companies, but thank you for explaining the whole pedestal thing.
Alderman Rozak.
Yeah, I mean, there's a process when you potentially have to sue a municipal entity. One is you got to give the proper notice, and that gives them the 120-day clock starts ticking. If the insurance company won't pay it, then we have to pay it, correct? So if we disallow, we're not saying their claim is invalid by disallowing the claim, and we're not saying that the insurance company won't pay them, but this is part of that process, is my understanding.
Yeah, well, I'm going to let the attorney talk to you a little bit more too, but there's actually a statute that gives us exemption from this as long as we have no negligence involved. So if we're following our maintenance schedule and we had no prior notice of a problem there, then we are deemed not negligent in this case and therefore not liable. We couldn't have fixed something we didn't know was broken.
And we've complied with the regular maintenance.
Do you want to comment?
Yeah.
And we did follow the regular maintenance schedule.
But the point, I think, was made earlier that it was within 3 months of when that was scheduled, but it wasn't an ongoing problem prior to, right? So we couldn't. Exactly, we couldn't.
Shouldn't be having discussion.
Right.
I think we should hear from Luke
Yeah.
Yeah, the statute's 89380. It's a general discretionary immunity statute. There are a couple exceptions. The insurance company determined that those exceptions don't apply. So our recommendation is to follow the insurance company's recommendation. They're the ones that will be paying for the defense. They're the ones that be footing the bill. They determined that this was an act of God essentially, and that there's no liability for the city. So that's our recommendation.
Alderman Ellis?
It's my understanding that we do own that pedestal.
That we own
My
it, yes.
understanding that at this time, we could deny the claim, and I don't know what the possibility of us going into a lawsuit is, but there is that possibility. With that understanding, my question here is the lesser of two evils in a sense, and I don't, it is our pedestal.
Yes, it belongs to the city. It belongs to the electric utility.
That is correct.
Yes.
Alderman Kavieski and then Alderman Shellpepper after.
I'm not a fan of insurance companies nor their recommendations. So just want to go on record for that. If this was an issue that was ongoing, or there was some way to know that the maintenance should have been done and we were negligent in doing that, I would support a settlement associated with that. But because it wasn't, because there was no light and there was none of that, I'm going to support the disallowing. I think that should put you in a position with your insurance company to pursue, I would hope. Is that?
I'm sorry, you can't comment. I'm sorry, you can't comment. If you're going to comment, I have to allow you to.
Yeah, sorry.
And it's inappropriate for us to do that, so if you could please sit down.
Oh, I'm not allowed to talk.
Well, we can ask him a question.
We can ask
Why
him.
can't we ask him a question?
Yeah, you're not supposed to do that.
I will make an assumption that $3,000 to anybody is a lot of money. It's a lot of money to me. But I've had to pay my fair share, so to speak, when situations have come up and it's similar. Again, that's why I'm where I'm at.
Alderman Shellpepper?
Yeah, I was just going to go along the same lines in terms of Mr. Justice. It seemed like he acknowledged the city was adhering to the maintenance schedule that's required of us by the state, that we were complying with it, and you know, just deciding kind of arbitrarily when to award damages when our insurance company is telling us we should, reject the claim, and we are all acknowledging that we've complied with the state law, that we weren't negligent, that we were staying with our, maintenance schedule. It all kind of seems to lend to the fact that we should keep with the insurance company's recommendation, strictly because then going forward, anytime an act of God happens in this city, do we then pay out an insurance claim? It seems like it sets a bad precedent, even though it's probably not like binding in any way, but that's why I'm gonna vote to disallow the claim. And I appreciate you guys coming here.
Just out of respect for the residents, if we have questions for developers when we're discussing something, the developers come up and are allowed to ask the questions.
Right,
So
you
why
just
was
have to
Mr. Justice
request.
told to sit down?
Because he was not asked by me, he was asked by an alderman, and we offer the developers that same privilege. If you would like to have Mr. Justice come up,
Yeah, I would like
and you
for
would
those
like to
questions
ask
be
him
answered by
questions,
Mr.
you just have to ask me. Otherwise, we lose control of the court, or not the court, the council. So,
as an official request, Mayor, would you allow him to?
absolutely, come on up, Mr. Justice.
So the question?
Yeah, restate the question, Lou.
Have to rewind the tape.
Well, while you're rewinding, do we need to maybe reevaluate our every 5 years of inspecting this? I mean, this was a piece of our equipment that failed.
It's one.
Sorry, I'm probably opening another can of worms.
Yeah, I think we
Yeah.
need to stay on task with this case, and what is in front of you today.
So I would say the number of pedestals out there and the number of instances something like this occurs is disproportionate, right? And if it would have occurred after the period of time, then there could have been a ground for negligence. I think my question was in regards to us disallowing this. It puts you in a position to have your homeowner's insurance reengage and provide the $3,000. And that's kind of where we were at with
Well,
that.
yeah, and I think to your point about insurance companies, I mean, they look to, deny, and they understand that at $3,000, $3,200, that hiring an attorney and the cost that goes into that there isn't a cost benefit to do that. So I think what we're asking is, given that the loose wire was at the pedestal, it wasn't a result of something that occurred at our house, that the city, step up and take responsibility for that. And to your point, there's no way, there's no way for us to have alerted the city that there was an issue, because the only way to know there was an issue, that was the negative wire, as I understand it, that became disconnected, that was sending the surges into the house. So unless there was a light on there that signals, hey, there's something wrong with this pedestal, there's no way for anybody to know it, the city or for us.
So council, is there a question
Well, I don't have any more questions.
for the plaintiff? Any question? That's why you come up, is for questions, guys. Thank you very much. Alderman Rozak.
So I think we should be careful about talking about what we think is or is not negligent, because you sure as heck don't want it to be deposed in a lawsuit. We deny claims all the time. The concept of sovereign immunity is, if we weren't, because our insurance company and their counsels determined there's no exceptions to sovereign immunity, we have to go along with that decision. Because if cities start getting sued for everything like supplying electrical service or sewer backups or all these things, we all pay for those services. And by the way, by just disallowing the claim doesn't mean they won't get paid.
Correct.
The insurance, they have now the right, after that, within 120 days, to file a lawsuit or make some additional claims, and the insurance company can negotiate with them separately without us involved. So we should follow that advice. It's the right thing in this situation, because we're not here just for their claim, we're here for all of the city taxpayers. And we can't open ourselves up, that sovereign immunity up. So I'd like to move to disallow the claim as presented.
Second, Kavieski.
Any further discussions or comments? Call roll, please.
It's a tough vote.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Nay.
Alderman Ellis.
Nay.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you for coming in. I think we all feel bad for you. And I hope you understand what the decision and why it was done the way it was done. So please don't take offense of any of the comments. On to our next item. Consider act on Resolution 23-R3092, authorizing the Community Development Authority, the CDA, to establish boundaries, develop a redevelopment plan, and designate the Olympia Hills land blighted and in need of redevelopment. Mr. Duffy.
This is essentially a resolution. As you all know, you've created the Community Development Authority to do such projects, but we cannot do any work until authorized by the council. So essentially, as you're well aware, that there's a public-private partnership request on behalf between the city and the Olympia Hills development. And this resolution essentially is directing the CDA to start that process of a redevelopment plan, blight determination, and those elements necessary for the future consideration of a TIF district.
Any questions for Mr. Duffy? Like to entertain a motion?
So move, Kavieski.
Second, Mulder.
Any further comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Nay.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
On to our next item, consider act on Resolution 23-R3101, designating the Plaza as a city park.
Again,
Mr.
we've
Hepner.
saved the best for last. I'll be brief, but between city leaders and staff, we've been working on redeveloping the Oz Plaza next door to us in time for the 2024 celebration of the 85th anniversary of the showing of the movie The Wizard of Oz. And along with this, city leadership has looked at changing this designation, it's currently city-owned property, to a city park for two main reasons. One is liability, and one is the use of alcohol. If it's a park, it's considered recreation immunity, and it's a stronger liability for the city than if it's just city-owned property. That's directly from our city attorney, Stan. And then also, a park, you're allowed to bring and consume alcohol. We're not looking at selling it here, but it's different than a city-owned property. So those are the two main areas. You have a exhibit that shows what the boundaries would be. It's ultimately the space that the city owns next door to the city hall, not roofs or anything like that. We expect the maintenance to be pretty minimal. So while we're adding a park space, it's 1/10 of an acre. We currently already handle snow plowing. I see it kind of like the boardwalk where periodically you might clean up tables or the area, but for the most part, patrons take care of that themselves. And at our most recent Park and Recreation Board meeting, they did unanimously approve this item and passed a recommendation on to the council for consideration. So happy to answer any questions, but that is what we're looking for, is to designate the Oz Plaza as a city park.
Alderman Kavieski.
As its conversion into an official park, would it then get a chance for park impact fees for any capital improvements?
Yes, they would be eligible, although it'd have to be part of a plan. So it's not currently part of the plan, but it could be part of a new plan.
Bike and ped plan, or
Well,
whatever.
the Oz Plaza.
No, the Oz Plaza.
No, but what plan? What
It would
plan
be
is
part of a park impact fee plan.
Okay, right.
Any other questions or comments?
I'd like further clarification on that, because he's saying no, yes, and she's saying yes. If we can get better clarification, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
We both said yes,
It was
but it would
just
have to
Lori
be in a
brought it back.
plan,
It had to be a
a
plan.
new plan, or an amended plan. So it's, once it's a city park, it's eligible for development, acquisition. We already acquired it. But it's not currently in our plan, so it would have to be an amended plan, which is something I think we've been looking at doing anyways for the overall city.
Okay. Thank you.
Like to entertain a motion?
So move, Kavieski.
Second, Altman Cloth.
Any further questions or comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
With no staff reports today, are there any reports or comments from aldermen? Alderman Kavieski.
Last meeting, I thanked a couple of department directors as I'm wrapping up. I'd like to thank Mr. Joel Pickard for the last 6 years of bringing me up to speed with utilities. It's an incredible department. You have good staff, and it provides an awesome service for our community. Mrs. Lori Murray Sullivan, thank you for working together on what will be presented on Thursday, and for providing a wealth of knowledge over the years associated with revenues and expenses. Kevin Fraber was here earlier. It just, again, to reiterate to the community who may be up and or watching, you have an awesome city infrastructure and staff associated with it. And one final thing, today is my son Quinn's 18th birthday, and we're here. For everybody who makes comments about those who are elected and whatnot, everybody on here gives up something for serving you. We do it gladly because it serves our community and our families, and this is an example of some of that stuff you get to miss for being here.
Lou, I get to miss work right now.
I'll trade you.
Jennifer.
I just want to say thank you to Jason Gallo and Bob Duffy. You know, the decisions around the Newman project weren't easy, and there was a lot of historical data that I wanted, you know, all the way back to 1990 comp plans or 94, you know, approvals of Briarwood. And I mean, you guys were just absolutely incredible, and it kind of drove me today to have a conversation with two different realtors. Well, one technically a broker, the other one a realtor. And just kind of grilled them about, you know, when you sell a house or a property to somebody, do you let them know what's coming into the big empty field? To kind of find out that they kind of don't. So just a little piece of advice: if you buy a house next to an empty field, call your city planner and say, hey, what's the plan? So everyone call Jason.
Any other comments from?
And his number is?
His personal cell phone number.
Any other comments from council members? One comment from the mayor before we close. Aldermen that we know for sure will be on council after the next election. If you have a desire of certain committees, staying on some or going to different ones, I'm going to start that process next week of looking at reallocating the committee assignments for the next year. So if you have something, just reach out to me individually. And then I guess you'd say I'm going to do one more. Just my hats off to all of you. The conversations we've had in closed sessions, some of the big things that have happened, you know, the ups and downs. I think that all of your council members for the community are really working hard to try to keep the risk down for us as residents and trying to really doing some thoughtful thinking. They're not just sitting here just saying aye. And I think it's important that the community knows that. And my hat's off to all of you. I'd like to entertain a motion to close.
So moved, Altman Cloth.
Second, Kavieski.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a wonderful evening, everybody.